Right, so I'm going to move to the next set of speakers now we have. And the session is titled Beyond I. This session is all about people who have gone way beyond the call of themselves, their own families and their own, companies to serve. Service is one of our tracks of social well-being, and I couldn't think of anyone better than these two women to talk about this. One is Monica Dhar.
Sure.
She works with Reliance Industries and heads their diversity, inclusion, and well-being agenda. In conversation with Carmistha Mitra, who's the SVP and Group Chief Learning Officer, Axis Bank and its subsidiaries companies. Monica, I've known very long. She's been a team member and a friend and a colleague. And Carmistha, honestly, we just stumbled onto each other on Facebook just about a month ago. And a relation really built and developed fast. I saw her and her husband doing something extraordinary during the peak of the pandemic time in March, April, May. And I chose to call her here to talk to us about, Beyond I. With that, Monica, I'm going to hand it over to you to lead the session.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I mean, you just summed it up. The spectrum of relationships, you and I, having known each other for 20 years, and Carmistha, just about a few months perhaps, but that's what relationships are all about. Deep, authentic. So really, a great opportunity. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Carmistha. Before we start, Supriya spoke about the pandemic at length and the anguish that it caused. And then, of course, Dr. Rajan spoke about happiness. Quite honestly, as I reflect on the past year, while we have seen profound anguish, pain, and grief, what we have also seen is the rise of effective humanity. We all stepped forward in our ways, trying to help others, small, big ways, in whatever we felt was the right thing to do. But of course, then there are individuals who have, like Carmistha, who have come forward and, given it a different shape, a different structure. So today, in my conversation with Carmistha, really, I'm very curious, Carmistha, where did it all start from? Was the pandemic a trigger? Did you have it somewhere, lurking in the background that you wanted to do something like that? Why don't you tell your story to us?
Yeah, so I think it's, thanks for asking that question, and thanks, Dr. Rajan, for a beautiful session, as always. Thanks, Harleena, and everyone here. It's a very difficult question to answer, but let me attempt, Monica. So I think it started at 3 stages, of my life. So the first stage was pretty much when I was a child. And, as child, they ask you to write in school that what is it that you want to become as you grow up. So whenever I tried to visualize, I saw myself, doing something for the society. And I said, let me become at least a right hand of Prime Minister of India to be able to do that. Right? I never wrote a doctor or an engineer or something like that. I think the second situation came when I was really closing my eyes and visualizing myself 5 years back. Where do I see myself going forward? And that's when I really saw myself in this space where there are thousands of, malnourished children I somehow saw in my visualization, and I'm talking to them and I'm taking care of them. So that was the next trigger that I had. And the third, of course, was the pandemic, which was like once in 100 years phenomena, as they say, and for us, many once in a lifetime. And that I thought was really an opportunity for me to start progressing sort of in that direction. And in a way, I've been preparing for this for the last 2 years. So for me, it's a culmination of factors which sort of came together.
Oh, wonderful. So what is SOS?
Completely to the pandemic, and we realized a lot of that was to the lack of information, for the lack of a better cause. And what do we do? Then I was taking care of an elderly person who had just survived COVID, almost the black fungus, and I saw the desperation that we had, despite our networks and connects, to get even an oxygen cylinder. And also that whole people just were feeling helpless. And that's when, what struck us was that, that iceberg hitting in Titanic.
Yes.
and they sent an SOS signal, and that never got recognized. So we said, let's in our small way start something and recognize that people do need help at this point in time. So we decided to form a platform of aggregation of information, contacting people to the right services, pull through our networks, and really supported people to sort of connect to each other and find a way to survive, because the government of India was still putting its act together. So it was our way of looking at how do we support the community to come together and really find a way out to really survive. It's absolutely something that comes from our heart, and it's a selfless service that we want to give to the community that brings happiness and joy to us. So that's the purpose why SOS was formed.
Absolutely heartwarming. And Carmistha, like, most of us here on the call, you too have a 9 to 5. I mean, now it's not even fair to call a 9 to 5 job. We all work perhaps 24/7. So what is it that, what is it that made you take that extra mile, and set up the entire, the infrastructure or the entire framework of SOS to, it took days to get one oxygen cylinder in place, right? It took perhaps, more than a day to get a hospital bed if one was lucky, in the last 2 months. How did you manage this 24/7 job plus this something which is so painful,
Yeah.
because
So
so
a
many
lot of
times
it,
before
yeah, a lot
before
of
help
it I
could reach
must,
the person who had kind of left us.
yeah. Actually, a lot of it was supported by, of course, as you know, it was also the brainchild of my life partner, Kaushik. So he really pulled through a lot in making this happen. And the rest was really about the WhatsApp, the connects. And if you wish to take a time out for something, you do. So I would do it in between breaks. I would take an hour off sometimes, and sometimes, in the and mostly in the evenings once your day is over, because it was a continuous 24-hour struggle, isn't it? So in between breaks, whenever you had time, whenever someone reached out, took the phone call, maybe at times I just took time off from 1 or 2 meetings and I delegated. So it helped me to learn to manage my life better as well. So I think it's partnership, it's networking, your own willingness to let go and give this a priority when it needed to be a priority, and heavens didn't fall, nothing crashed. But even if we touched, a couple of lives, a few lives was saved, uh, that itself is a blessing. And we don't even, in a way track, people do come back and tell us. Yeah, so if you wish to do something, you always take time out for it. That's what I did.
So you bring in a very important point that, you would delegate or drop 1 or 2 meetings. Now tell me, Axis Bank, and, obviously, there's so much work, 24/7 meetings, etc. Are these two different aspects of your life? I mean, one which is perhaps deeply personal, that's your purpose, and the other one is the rigmarole of the corporate life, meetings, getting the PPTs out in time. Is there any convergence in the two?
Absolute convergence, I say that, serendipity or luck or destiny always comes in your favor. So if you see Axis motto, it's Dil Se Open, right? So we are a very, very different bank. So I remember when pandemic struck us last year. So that's the time, when we're designing our strategies and how do we really cope up with this, or what do we offer to our people. So I designed an initiative called Stay Positive, right? And today it's very interesting. The government of India is also calling Stay Positive. But it was just sitting, in my apartment in Bombay and making a plan. And that's when this struck me. And I went and presented to our MD and Mancom saying, we wish to do this Stay Positive. It essentially means, mindfulness and yoga and talking about all these things and helping our people with their inner well-being and self-confidence. I did not know. I was just, 7 months into the organization, but I just felt strongly that I must pitch it along with many other strategies. And it just got accepted. And I felt so strong after that today in our organization, in the last 1 year, all our new joinees, we take them through this well-being, emotional well-being program. We call it Color Your Life. For the businesses, they now come back to a request to be able to keep their people charged and motivated. So where we do things like inculcating self-belief or uplift yourself, so various forms of stay positive. But along with my regular job, I invest 20% of my organization and time to drive this agenda. And we have touched 40,000 people, and you must see the feedback and the joy people are having when they are experiencing this. And they spend about an hour, 45 minutes over 3 to 4 weeks. And I must thank God that it also gave me a lot of support and also maybe recognition when you do good things, internal as well as external. I was not again expecting any of this, just did it from the heart. But we've touched 30,000 people already within our organization through this process.
So tell me, you just said, it gave you recognition. Of course, who doesn't like it? How do you feel, when you make that difference to one, even if it's to that one individual?
Miles to go before I sleep. Robert Frost has been my favorite poet. That's the way I feel. But I feel good that the world is ready for it. I feel very, very good about that.
So do you think that there are people, who perhaps would want to do lots, things like you are doing? They perhaps don't have the ideas or don't know how to go about it. Would that be a fair statement? Perhaps we do need, leaders like you who kind of pave the way.
Yeah.
For this thing to move forward.
Yeah, could be, Monica. And at times, the wherewithal or the courage. And thanks for asking me that question. And I have been saying in all, such discussions I've been a part of these days that I'm available 24 hours, anyone who needs my support for this, because it's also my learning as well as contribution. So would love to step forward and make these changes in the society happen.
Right. So since you mentioned society, how do we really differentiate when it comes to things like these? Maybe pandemic is the push, not for you, perhaps for a lot of others. Is it philanthropy that we are doing, or is it charity?
That's a great question. I think, it is a mindset. It's a mindset of us, and I think all of us have it in us. We just need that push, need that infrastructure and the support. But where it comes from is that mindset of thinking beyond self, like Dr. Rajan was talking about, right? It is, and as Hariharan also asked that question, it's moving beyond self-centricity, and we are human beings. We are all connected with each other at the core. So, and we all wish to support and help each other. So I think we just need to recognize that latent mindset of ours and sort of bring that out. And hence, I think they all start blurring, Monica, the charity, the philanthropy, etc. But I think it's a mindset of philanthropy. But if I have to talk about my journey, because, you just can't do it in one day, isn't it? So when I was younger, I would find ways to support charities because I did not have the network, or I did not know how to go beyond that. But when I found some charities which our friends were a part of, then I said, oh, can I adopt a girl child for the education? So it started like that. And then, I started associating myself to build some, mini organizations or support in their cause. Now I work with Access Foundation and support their cause. And I've also, been a part of a foundation which is upcoming, and again, devote my time there. So I'm moving towards philanthropy and started with a mindset of charity, if I may say that.
Oh, beautifully put. Thanks. So then I think we have a tougher, road ahead. We have started things like these with earnestness, with complete honesty. How do we make sure it's sustainable? It has to carry forward. We have seen organizations and, corporates come forward, giants have come forward in terms of helping the government with hospitals, etc. But really, it cannot be like a movement or like an activism that dies once, the pandemic is kind of managed better. We have to carry it forward. And most important, how do we pass on the baton to the younger generation? There was a time when when being charitable was a part of our value system, but somehow it somewhere got kind of lost. How does good parenting help? How do we, each one of us as responsible citizens, make sure that this is a way of life? It's a way of our value system.
I think it's like we all, a friend of mine once told me, and we were doing a leadership session together. We were in the same class. And this was, I think, 17, 18 years back. And the same question came up, values. So how do you demonstrate values? And I remember what she said at that point in time. She's also very interesting and a very good leader. So she said that, it's all about, what we demonstrate to our children. We were all young parents at that point in time. Our role modeling is what that matters. So, so I think it's our role modeling as parents, it's our role modeling as corporate leaders is what matters. And because as I told you, this 30,000 people I'm talking about, they love this. They're all young people, very, very young people. Let me share the example at my home. So when I requested my daughter to start meditation, let's say I'm doing this since 2010, 2-3 years back, and she's a very lovely child, but she just didn't know how to respond to this. She just thought it's something which is old moms and dads, they do. It's not for them. But then she started maybe seeing some change in me. So one day she said, okay, I want to try this. And Rajan also talked about chanting. She said, okay, I want to try this. And now she regularly, there are a group of people in UK, they regularly chant and meditate, and they realize the power of it. My son, who I thought is a big rebel, right? What is all this all about? And, but he's now, when he chants Om and when we do our meditation sessions, it's amazing. So I think it's about role modeling. But I was talking to my daughter the other day and she calls me and she says, Mom, I had a dream. I said, what's the dream that you saw? He said, we are doing a big charity and there are truckloads of gifts that we are donating to a charity. And I had that dream. And I just felt like virtually hugging her that day. And that's how, it also does get into their dreams once they see it happening around them all the time. Their peer groups are supporting, their parents are role modeling. When they get into corporates, they're talking, the universities are talking. So how can you not be touched by it?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's really heartwarming to see that it's becoming a part of the of our education system. Happiness, values are a part of the curriculum.
Yes,
which is absolutely great. Well, Karishma, Carmistha, that's more power to you. May your tribe increase. And I think I'm going to check with Harleena if there is time for questions, and the audience may want to ask you about your work before the next session.
Thank you for your beautiful questions, Monica.
So Monica, that's what in our world we
Thank
call
you.
a
I enjoyed the
question.
interaction.
I said, you asked me a leading question saying, I'm going to ask Harleena if there is any question. So that gives me no choice. So I'm going to quickly check if there are any questions. You can type it in the chat window or, ask. And as you think through your question, Carmistha, I'm absolutely bewitched by your journey and your story. It's as authentic as it gets. You've showed your vulnerable self and your authentic self. And many times in leadership, we talk about become authentic leaders, be a pinnacle leader, follow your purpose. But, saying and doing is a beautiful coming together here. And because you quoted Robert Frost, I'm going to kind of complete that for you, because the session was beyond I and Monica, you did such wonderful moderation, such deep questioning. I'm completely flummoxed. So thank you for that. And the line is, two roads diverged in the woods, like they do for all of us, really. You took the one less traveled, and that is making all the difference. And a quick response to Monica, the question you asked, is it charity or philanthropy? Honestly, to my mind, when I hear you say this, or when I do stuff like what I'm doing today, spending my time and energy here with all of you, it's neither. I'm following my purpose. These are my values. So this is my true north. It is energizing me. So in honor and with absolute gratitude, thank you to both for that session. I'm going to take a quick look.
Thank you, Harleena, for really thinking about this and making really a movement happen. Sincere gratitude and thank you.
Thank you.
Karma banta jayega. Akele hi chale the hum sab. Thank you, Sharmishta.